Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Thank you so much for attending tonight. I'm Councillor Todd Attridge. I'll be chairing this public meeting tonight as I'm the portfolio chair for planning and development. Tonight I'm joined by staff and members of council. Starting on my far left, we've got Councillor Darrell, then Councillor Adam, Councillor Mink. To my right, we've got Mayor Elena and Councillor Les. Deputy Mayor, unfortunately, is unable to attend tonight, but sends her regrets. I'd like to begin, as we always do, with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. And now I'd like to read our Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item number 2 of the agenda, declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest from members of council? I'll note that none were received in advance. None. Item number 3. So we're here tonight for a public meeting that is held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. This meeting is a prescribed requirement under the Act and represents only one component of the planning and development process. Please note that no decisions will be made at tonight's meeting. The format of today's public meeting is as follows. First, the applicant or their representative will provide an overview of the application and policy framework review. Then, municipal staff will provide an overview of the technical review and public consultation. Council members may ask questions of the applicant or staff or provide comments at this time. Finally, members of the public who wish to provide input will be able to do so by coming up to the podium, and alternatively, you can also provide input via written submissions to planning@porthope.ca. Please note, as the chair, I may call on the applicant or staff to provide clarification on matters raised by members of the public. I would like to note that over on the table, I think most of you saw them, there are sign-in sheets. If you want to be notified when a notice of decision is issued, please ensure you fill out the sign-in sheets with your information. Moving on to item number 4 of the public meeting, it's time now for the public meeting. This is regarding a proposed zoning bylaw amendment application to amend zoning bylaw 20-2010, file number ZB01-2024, submitted by EcoView Consulting Services on behalf of the owner LBD Holding Limited, operating as Brenbrook Homes, for lands municipally known as 276 to 282 Victoria Street North, within the urban area of the municipality of Port Hope. I would like to note that council members are not here tonight to express their opinions for or against the proposed changes. That time will come when the matter is brought forward for future consideration at a committee of the whole meeting. Moving on to 4.1, presentation by the applicant. I'm going to ask staff if you could please introduce tonight's speaker.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chris Conti is here from EcoView Consulting Services to represent the development tonight.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about this proposal and given the opportunity to discuss what we feel is a good proposal for the property and one that will meet a number of current planning objectives in terms of providing needed housing and helping to meet housing shortages in Ontario. So I'm senior planner with EcoView Consulting. We're a land use planning firm based in Peterborough, and we're carrying out the planning work for this proposal. The proposal we've entitled as Barrington Place Apartments.
Pardon me, I'm just going to interrupt for just one second. Could you come a little closer to the microphone, or maybe
You got
more
any problems
down?
hearing me?
That, yeah,
Okay.
just, yeah, we're having a hard time hearing. Thank you.
The proposal is called Barrington Place Apartments. So the location is at 276 Victoria Street North. That's on the west side of Victoria Street, north of Trefusis. And it consists of a 1.23 hectare site with 60.76 meters of frontage on Victoria Street. The site is approximately 200 meters south of Highway 401 and approximately 320 meters north of Jocelyn Street. The surrounding area is mainly residential. The southern border of the site borders houses, the backs of houses on Trefusis Street. The east border of the site is Victoria Street. North of the site, there's a municipal operations center property. And to the west, it's vacant land, future employment area. There's also the proposed future extension of Pemberton Road, which would come from the west and run through this property at the north limit of this property. This just gives a view of the current state of the property. On the left, it's the Victoria Street frontage. There are two dwellings on the property that are in a state of disrepair and I believe are vacant. And that's a shot of one of them. There'll be, the dwellings will be demolished in conjunction with the proposal. And the property is largely vacant at the rear. I think on the left picture, you can just see in the upper left corner there, one of the houses, backs of the houses on Trefusis Street. In terms of the planning context, the site is designated urban area in the County of Northumberland official plan, designated medium density residential in the Port Hope official plan. The proposed use is permitted in both the Northumberland County and Port Hope official plan. Density, the density of the proposal falls within the upper limit of the medium density provision in the official plan. And the zoning for the property is medium density residential. It's a special zoning with exception 97 and a holding provision placed on it. Exception 97 applies to the Res 3 zoning, and it allows for reduced side, front, and rear yard setbacks. The holding provision is a requirement for a development agreement to be entered into with the municipality before any development can occur on the property. So the medium density residential zoning permits single detached, semi-detached, triplex, multiple unit, and street townhouse dwellings, but it does not permit apartments. So because this is a proposal for an apartment, for 2 apartment buildings, that's why the zoning bylaw amendment is required. So the zoning bylaw amendment will permit the apartment use and site characteristics. The bylaw amendment proposes a high density residential Res 4 zoning with special provisions. The special provisions are required because part of the proposal includes dedication of the northern section of the property to the municipality for the extension of Pemberton Road. And the intent is that that will be a conveyance in association with the development agreement for the property. So the special provisions, because of that dedication, are that there will be no planting strip along the northern boundary of the property. The exterior side yard is reduced to 3.1 meters. There'd be a reduced lot area from 1 hectare to 0.84 hectares and a reduced lot frontage to 26.1 meters. In all other respects, the proposal complies with the provisions of the Res 4 zoning. And this might be a bit small to really see, but this is a concept plan for the proposal. And you can see in yellow the two proposed buildings. Again, 3-story apartment buildings, 38 units in the building on the left and 36 units in the building on the right. There'll be driveway access from Victoria Street running along the north part of the buildings, and access to the buildings will be from the north. There'll be a 5-meter wide separation between the two buildings, and parking associated with the proposal on the west, south, and east sides. Be a total of 93 parking spaces provided, including 81 normal spaces and don't have that breakdown. I think 4 accessible spaces. There's also a walkway along this at the southern, going south from the westerly building, going to Trefusis Street that connects into a walkway that exists between those houses on Trefusis Street. Okay, 93 parking spaces, 74 resident and 19 visitor spaces are the parking space. It's parking space breakdown, and 4 spaces will be barrier free. So the building is 3 stories in height, which is a fairly low-rise building. It complies with the height provisions in the bylaw. And there's substantial separation from the apartment buildings to the residential area to the south, which we feel should provide a good deal of privacy and lack of disturbance of those residential areas. And as I mentioned earlier, the driveway area at the north, along the north part of the building, will be conveyed to the municipality for the future Pemberton Road extension. So as I mentioned earlier, the proposal will assist in meeting a number of provincial and municipal planning objectives. The most recent or current provincial planning policy actually has in its preamble a mention of the need for building 1.5 million new residential units. So dealing with the housing crisis is really a high priority in planning as far as the province is concerned. And Section 2.2.1 of the provincial planning statement states that planning authorities shall provide an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet projected needs of current and future residents in the regional market area. And it's by permitting and facilitating all housing options and promoting densities for new housing, which especially uses land use, resources, infrastructure, and public service facilities. So this proposal will help meet that objective. It represents intensification of the residential use of an underutilized site and will promote and provide for a needed type of housing on a site where it's suitable and designated for residential use. In terms of the municipal Port Hope official plan, the way that the official plan indicates that growth will be accommodated in Port Hope is through efficient land use management strategies to promote a more compact pattern of development within existing urban areas and hamlet boundaries. And this proposal will help accomplish that. And it will represent intensification within the urban boundary in a manner that we feel is compatible with the surrounding development. The proposal will meet planning objectives by adding to the range and mix of housing options in the immediate area, redeveloping an underutilized site, intensifying the existing residential use within the Port Hope urban area, meeting density requirements, and providing a needed form of housing, and providing a type of development on a site that's designated to accommodate it. The proposed development will be compatible with the surrounding area. The 3-story height should not create privacy issues. The municipal operations center is to the north, so that should not be disturbed. There's substantial separation from the existing residential areas to the south, and lands to the west are vacant. The proposal has been supported by a number of technical studies, including a traffic impact study by Jewel Engineering that found there would be little impact. Functional servicing report, a stormwater management design brief, a phase 1 environmental site assessment, and our planning justification report. And these studies support the development of the site as discussed. So in summary, the proposal will meet a number of planning objectives. It's compatible with the surrounding area. It will facilitate the future extension of Pemberton Road by providing a portion of the future road allowance. In terms of our planning analysis, our opinion is that the zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the County of Northumberland official plan. It conforms to the municipality of Port Hope official plan. It complies with the intent of the zoning bylaw, and we feel it represents good planning and should be approved. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I'll invite committee members if you have questions. Yes, Councillor Mink.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions. I might have missed it, but what is the configurations of the units in the buildings? Is it an assortment of bedrooms and so on?
I understand. I don't think that has been finalized yet, but the average size of the units will be 82.6 square meters, 83.6 square meters. So that's going to be the average size. The breakdown of the units in terms of bedrooms, I think, will be something that will be determined through the remainder of the planning process.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask you this? Okay, the other question I had is just in, as we often, the questions come up with a lot of developments is regarding the trees. And I know that the perimeter is surrounded in trees. So will there be measures taken to protect the existing trees, especially the buffers between the current house and that unit? And is it expected to be a lot of tree loss on this lot?
I think that's certainly something we would look at. I expect that there'll be a landscaping plan required at the site plan approval process. And at that point, we will look at protecting whatever trees that were felt to be desirable.
Thank you. And there was a question regarding the park. So I just want to confirm that the expectation is that walkway will join with the current walkway and the residents would be using Chalmers Park as their park. Is that correct?
That's part of the plan, yes, to connect with the walkway to the south. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks. And then just my last question, or actually I have two. I just want to clarify the proposed driveway, just for clarity, if the municipality were to extend Pemberton. The intention is that Pemberton, the driveway would then become Pemberton. Is that correct?
So the application involves construction of a driveway. I think it's not to the standard of municipal road, but that area will be conveyed to the municipality. So there'll be a easement over that portion to allow for use of the driveway in the interim stage until the municipality was ready to build Pemberton Road. At that stage, I think they'd have to build it to municipal standards.
Thank you. And my last question is regarding shadows. So I'm assuming because of the setback and the height of the building, as well as the way the sun moves, there isn't any expectation that shadows will cast on the current residents at all. Could you just confirm that?
I don't believe so. It's a 11-meter height, and there is an 18.8 meter setback from the southern houses to the south. Shadows are usually cast more to the north anyway, so I doubt there'd be any sort of concern there.
Thank you very much. I'll pass it to the mayor and then over to Councillor Les after that.
Thank you for the presentation, and Councillor Mink, with your plethora of questions. I think you probably took some of them from what others were going to ask, but I do want to come back to the configuration of the apartments. At this point, based on previous presentations we've had at this council table, we would expect a little bit more detail in terms of what those apartments are going to look like, giving us an approximate size and saying it's going to be sorted out through the planning process seems a little bit abstract at this point. And it's linked to my second question, which is, we know that the determination of parking spots for builds has changed in the municipality over the last little while. And so it's 0.75 parking spot per unit. And depending on how many residents are going to be there, how many parking spots are going to be there, it would seem that the information around what kind of units are going to be there should be brought forward at this kind of public meeting. Are we talking about bachelors? Are we talking about 2 bedrooms? Are we talking about apartments that can accommodate families? I think that for information, we need to have more of that. And then linked to that is my question around, how did you determine in your design the number of parking spots that should be surrounding these 2 apartment buildings?
I can get that information to you in terms of the breakdown of number of bedrooms of the apartments. I don't have that with me now. I understand there's going to be a variety, but I can certainly get that to the committee after this meeting if there is any more detail about that. In terms of the number of parking spaces, we used the current provisions in the bylaw to determine the number, and I don't remember the percentage at the moment. Isn't it 1 per unit? Maybe turn that to staff.
Theo, did you want to answer that?
If I may, through the chair, the 0.75 rate is for the downtown area, and this one has 1.
Thank you for that. Chris, you'll need to put your hand.
It's 1 per unit. We provided 74 regular spaces and then additional visitors, and yeah.
Mary, to follow.
I know why I'm fixated on the 0.75. Because I'm always thinking we have too many parking spots in the community. But moving on to the second and more, in many ways, just as important question, I'll ask you what I ask every single developer that comes with a proposal, and that is, what percentage of those units are you intending to be affordable for the constituents of this community? You mentioned the housing crisis. We all know the housing crisis, and the expectation always is that when we work in partnership or collaboration with developers, that there is a plan for X number of affordable units that will be coming forward as part of any proposal.
So when we did this project initially, we looked at the planning for the project. We were proposing affordable units, but through the course of planning, it was determined that we really could not provide them for this proposal. So Pembroke Homes right now is not proposing to provide any affordable units in the two buildings. We feel that probably well, I won't speculate about the rents that'll be charged, but I think they'll probably be more on the affordable end, but not meet the definition of affordable according to the county's definition.
Well, again, I think more information on that would be required and some attention to the fact that this is a priority, not just for our community, but for the province and for the country. And so I hope that that is seriously taken into consideration for this project.
Thank you, Councillor Less.
I noticed you have two buildings. Why did you decide to have two buildings as opposed to one?
I think it was just a more desirable configuration, just to break up the massing of the structure rather than have one really large, long structure. I think it was really just for massing purposes, to break it up and make it a little bit more attractive.
And second question, why wouldn't you go to 4 stories?
I think in order to kind of to minimize the potential impact of the proposal, the higher you go, the more potential there is for overlook issues, concerns for privacy, and I think that was part of the planning rationale.
You do realize that on Henderson Street, 1 or 2 over from where you're going to be, that the newest development will be 4 stories?
Okay. This was the preference of the client of our Pembroke Homes, was to have a 3-story building to keep the height within the limits within zoning provisions. So that's what they prefer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from committee? Yeah, Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Just curious, do you know when the last traffic impact study was performed?
It was 2003, like last year. It was in 2003. Yeah. Sorry, 2023. I'm sorry. Yeah, I lose 20 years sometimes.
Questions are good? Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm now going to ask planning staff to please make their presentation, introduce the report.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, I'm going to outline a brief presentation on public consultation technical review for the zoning bylaw amendment file number ZB01-24. It's affecting the lands 276 through to 282 Victoria Street North. Okay, so as you can see on this map, subject lands are located on Victoria Street North at Klein Street, which is to the east of the subject property. To the north of the subject property is the municipality's Joint Operations Center. Further north is Highway 401. To the east, there's established residential neighborhood consisting of detached dwellings. To the south, there's another established residential neighborhood consisting of semi-detached and townhome dwellings. Highland Estates Park is also there. There's also an example of low-rise apartments south of Jocelyn Street on Victoria Street North. And to the west of the subject property, there are vacant employment lands, and there further west, there are developed commercial and employment areas. Battery. Okay, public consultation. Public consultation, as per the statutory requirements of the Planning Act, All residents living within 120 meters of the subject property received notices of complete application, as well as notices of public meeting. There's also a sign posted on site by the proponent outlining a notice of complete application. There's also a notice on the municipal website posted. Notice of complete application was prepared on August 21st, 2024. Site sign was posted on August 30th, 2024, and notice of public meeting was prepared on October 23rd, 2024. Okay, so technical circulation. So zoning bylaw amendments we circulate to staff and agencies as part of this procedure. This is not an exhaustive list of the comments received. There is an exhaustive list in the report that was published as part of the agenda for tonight. These are more so the comments that are just good to keep in mind as we move forward. I'll just go over them quickly. So Works in Engineering will work on, or would work on, the detailed design at the site plan approval stage. The Parks Department is considering cash in lieu of parkland. The Fire Department would review site plan approval stage to ensure safe functionality. County of Northumberland Planning Department had no objections, and they strongly encouraged the incorporation of affordable units. Ministry of Transportation will require development permits given the proximity of Highway 401 to the subject property. Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority will also work on the detailed design at site plan approval stage, would work on the detailed design at plan approval stage. And Alderville First Nation has requested further consultation in accordance with their consultation protocol. So next steps after this public meeting, the applicant will address public and agency circulation comments. And afterwards, staff would prepare a recommendation report based on policy, consistency, and conformity. It considers all comments received from the public. Recommendation report would then be reviewed at the committee of the whole and would be decided if it should proceed to council for a final decision, and a council meeting for a decision. And if approved, a notice of decision would be prepared, which would initiate an appeal period of 20 days. Having troubles with this. Not sure if the battery's dying on it. Yeah, I just want to go back one. There we go. Yeah. So this slide's for general information. So through Bill 23, as part of the More Homes Built Faster Act of 2022, the province of Ontario has limited appeal rights to only specified persons and specified bodies as defined under the Planning Act. So residents of the municipality and all residents in municipalities beyond Port Hope have lost appeal rights for zoning bylaw amendments as a result of Bill 23, which was implemented by the province of Ontario. So we just wanted to make that clear for everyone as we move forward. And lastly, there's the site plan. I won't go through the site plan. I think Mr. Conti did a good job of doing that, but Mr. Chair, if you'd like, we can leave that up for a visual tool as we move forward with this public meeting. And that's a bit about it for me, Mr. Chair.
Great, thanks very much, Ken. I appreciate that. Over to committee members for questions of staff. We'll start with Councillor Mink.
Thank you. I have two questions. Just to follow up with Councillor Adams' question, there's a lot of comments and questions about traffic. Could you provide, or another staff member, what is the scope of the traffic study and how is that determined?
Through the chair, the traffic impact study has been developed based on industry best practice. So it's a So the traffic study has been compiled based on industry best practices and levels of service document like requirements identified in the Ontario Traffic Manual. So the technique or the rule that Joule has used is based on levels of service or the delay to traffic. So the existing traffic study is showing that there's sufficient levels of service with the proposed development. We also recognize that there are traffic concerns already in the area. So the Port Hope Works Department, as well as the County of Northumberland, are already undertaking our own traffic study at this time. We're expecting the final report to come forward at the end of this month. And that traffic study has taken into consideration this proposed development. So we are already planning for future traffic signals at the intersection of Jocelyn and Victoria. It's also identified in our development charge study, future intersection improvements, as well as the installation of a future sidewalk on the west side of Victoria Street, on the west side between the development and Jocelyn Street. So those are already improvements identified in our development charges, planning for this future development.
Not a follow-up question, but just another different question. So this application, we're here today to approve a building, correct? As to not to approve it, but the zoning change. We're listening for the zoning change for a building, whereas medium density would typically be allowed there. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair. So the zoning in place that affects the subject property does allow for medium density development as per our zoning bylaw and our official plan. So what this zoning amendment is proposing to do is to permit apartment uses, which is not necessarily high density or medium density. It depends on the build form, the number of units, etc. And it's also intended to permit this development. It's supposed to address the deficiencies as a result of this proposal as well. So in the end, it would permit this building.
So could you provide, just for everybody here, what may be another example of a medium density that would potentially be approved, just so people know what medium density is that's not an apartment? What would be another example?
Yeah, so as per our official plan, I believe it's 60 to 120 units per hectare. So that could come in a variety of forms, notably townhomes, stacked townhomes, multiplexes. It doesn't necessarily need to be apartment uses. It's the amount of units in a given space, essentially.
Thank you for those questions. Other members of committee? Yeah, Mayor.
I'm not certain you'll have this information, but I'm going to ask anyway. How many currently in our municipality, how many rental apartments do we have?
Through the chair, I do not know, and I may defer that to the manager of planning, Theodora.
Through the chair to the mayor, are we looking for the number of units or apartment buildings?
It could be, I think both pieces of information would be helpful if we could get both the number of buildings and the number of currently that we have of rental units in the municipality.
Okay, through the chair. So I wouldn't have that number, handy, but we have a number of existing rental apartments. And if I can point out some that are in the vicinity, we have those 2-3 stories apartment south of Jocelyn Street along the Victoria. They are along the Victoria. Also, we have some other apartment buildings across from the Independent. That is a 4 or 5 stories as well. Plus, we have some on the 50 Cavan, and then higher density or higher height we have across from the McDonald's. So we do have some unit. However, I can say the vacancy rate for the rentals is pretty low for our municipality, but we can provide that information when we have it.
That would be very, very helpful. And can you just comment on the newest apartment that is going to be built on Henderson in terms of the height, the rezoning that we did on that, and the number of affordable units? that have been secured within that development?
Through the chair, that's a very good question, Mayor. This council last year approved the official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment for 60 Henderson. This is, in between the businesses on the Henderson and the Independent and the Shoppers Drug Mart. It's a 4-story building with a 74 units, of which are 5 affordable units. We are in the process, just for information to the public, of having the site plan agreement signed by the owner, by the Lisi Wellings, and also we're going to have an agreement about those 5 affordable units that will be for 15 years.
And one follow-up, I just wanted to ask you about the comments that came from Northumberland County. And you just highlighted the fact that they had no objections, but they were strongly encouraging the development of affordable housing units. Can you elaborate on that, please, for the public? And can you elaborate what is the definition that the county is currently using for affordable units?
Yeah, through the chair. So there are several policies within the Northumberland County's official plan that does encourage the implementation of affordable units. Regarding in the comments that are part of the report that was published for this evening, you can find those comments, and I'd be happy to provide those if you'd like. Regarding the specific definition of what the county considers affordable, I'm not sure at this time, but I can confirm that with you.
Through the chair, there are a number of affordable units and or definitions, and also county is going through the official plan amendment. Also, the definitions in the provincial planning statement. So, I don't want to quote something. There are a lot floating around, and the planners are having a hard time because of the fast changes. But we'll provide those. What county has and what if we have any definition ours as well.
That would be very helpful, especially when we hear that it's been considered, but we don't actually know what's being considered if we don't know what the range is or what the options are for affordable housing.
Thank you. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. So I have a question about the proposed driveway that would not be up to specs for a road. Maybe Jeanette could answer this best, but for potential expansion of the Pemberton Road through, can you maybe outline what the hurdles would be of doing that, and maybe what the cost to the municipality to upgrade that road would be?
So through the chair, currently Pemberton Road is identified in our official plan as a future collector road that would connect to Victoria Street. As part of this recent development, it was changed from a status to a collector road to a local road. So it would be now in our OP as designated as a local road. Because the timing of the development to the west is unknown, the road is not anticipated to be put through as part of this development. That's why the land is being transferred to the municipality for future road allowance with an easement conveyed to the owner to allow access. The cost of the road would be borne by the future developer of the lands to the west. That would be the plan. So, and cost of the road, it could be 20 years from now, and that's hard to estimate.
Thank you. And Mary, another question?
Yes, and this is probably one for you, Director Davidson. Can you indicate or can you explain to us if there have been ever any issues with flooding and noise from the operations center on Victoria?
Yes, there have been complaints received in the past.
Have there been floods?
No.
Can you just elaborate on the complaints around the noise?
Regarding winter maintenance activities primarily.
Councillor Less.
I don't see very much green space, and is there a compensating amount of parkland that will be going with this? We don't want money.
Through the chair, we circulated this application to the director of Parks and Recreation, and given the proximity of the park on Trefusis and the low usage by the kids, and I know that from my personal experience, she has asked for a cash in lieu, but we can look through the site plan approval if that's the direction of council to add some more landscaping within the site.
Yeah, and it does appear on the site plan. There's a green area along the bottom that says existing tree line to be preserved for screening purposes. That's the idea there. Is that right?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Committee, any other questions for staff? No. Seeing none, I'll just make one comment, maybe on the couple of pieces that were brought forward. If you can have that brought to us for the committee of the whole, Theo, on that information, that'd be helpful. Ken, thank you so much. I will ask the applicant, in light of the questions and what you heard, is there anything you wanted to add before I ask questions or open it up to the public?
I don't think there's really anything I need to add at this time, Mr. Chair. I think we've heard some of the concerns that the council, the chair, committee members have expressed, and we'll certainly attempt to address them, work with staff to address any outstanding issues.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Moving on to item number 4.3 of the agenda, submissions from members of the public. So before we begin submissions from the public, I would like to note that the staff report contains important information with respect to your opportunity to provide your comments on this matter. So as Ken pointed out, recent changes to the Planning Act have changed the appeal rights with respect to the public's ability to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So previously, you would be able to appeal that. Currently, you're no longer able to, but we did have the sign-up sheet over there. So if you wanted to understand what the decision was made later, or you want to be contacted about that, you certainly are welcome to do that, and you would be contacted regarding the decision. But if you've ever attended one of these meetings before, if you signed it, it gave you some appeal rights, but unfortunately, that's no longer the case. Only the applicant, a specified person as defined by the Planning Act, a public body as defined by the Planning Act, and a registered owner of land to which the bylaw would apply has the ability to appeal the eventual decision of the municipality of Port Hope to the Ontario Land Tribunal. This means that residents' appeal rights by zoning bylaw amendments have been removed by the province, currently what I said. Members of the public may provide comments or questions related to this application tonight or any time prior to a decision being made by council. So later on at a committee of a whole meeting, we will talk it through and it'll be brought forward. But at any time, you can certainly bring forward comments. You can email them to planning@porthope.ca if you've got planning questions around that. And also you can provide your comments to staff by using that email address if you don't provide them tonight. So if you go home later and you think of your question, by all means, that's your way of getting through to it, okay? And sometimes that happens. All those who wish to speak to this matter tonight should approach the microphone and clearly please state your name and your address so that we can record it. You will have to press the button and you have to make sure that it gets pressed. I also want to remind those of you in attendance, but especially those looking to speak this evening, please ensure that you complete the sign-in sheet near the entrance before you leave. The sheets will be collected by municipal staff and it'll help them provide a record of attendance and contact information if a notice of decision is requested. And with that in mind, if there are members of the public who would like to come up and make a comment or ask a question, please come forward. Thanks. If you can just state your name and address.
Okay, you got it. Mike Walton, 7 Klein Street in Port Hope. These comments here were written earlier or finalized earlier today, also with my neighbor. So I'm speaking as well as behalf of Ann Zagarchuk, and she's at 9 Klein Street. So like I said, we finalized these earlier today. So a couple of them have somewhat been answered or commented on, but I'm going to say them anyways just to have them on record. So the current zoning designation for the above property, we feel like it should be retained because it's consistent with the character and infrastructure of the surrounding neighborhood, which is all low to medium density residential with single family and generational homes. So it's consistent with intensification given the number of low density homes in the surrounding area. We would also like to point out that Penryn Lakeside Village, which has been in development since 2006, is all low and medium density. And at no point since the official plan was put in place were high density builds incorporated into this area to accommodate provincial, county, or Port Hope intensification. In fact, a recent application has been submitted for a change to low density housing from medium to conform to the character and nature of the build of the community. And we want our neighborhood to deserve the same consideration. The functional service report uses an estimate of 185 people in the proposed apartment buildings, 2.5 per unit. It is likely that this is closer to the number of inhabitants, as the development will likely have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. Port Hope and surrounding areas do not have developed linked public transit networks, and the number of vehicles will likely exceed the 98 that the parking spots that were mentioned by the developer. Resident visitor parking will spill over into our nearby streets, Klein, Victoria, Trefusis, which will exacerbate current parking and traffic issues in the neighborhood. It'll damage the current residents' use and enjoyment of their area, as well as creating a dangerous street environment where children play and there's frequent pedestrian traffic. Although rental units can designate the number of allotted parking spaces in a unit, they cannot control the number of cars owned by the people in the building. There will only be one exit and entrance from the proposed development directly opposite Klein Street. The proposed extension of Pemberton Drive, which supposedly would provide another entrance exit on the west side, is a future proposal. It was also mentioned it could be up to 20 years, so that might not happen at all since the land is privately owned. Assuming that residents of the proposed development will be traveling to jobs, the number of vehicles exiting the development onto Klein Street will create hazardous driving conditions, particularly with southbound traffic from the Operations Center and Cranberry Road. This will extend to Victoria and Jocelyn Street, where currently there are only 2 stop signs. It'll be dangerous for pedestrians to cross either of these 2 intersections to stay on the sidewalk. There are numerous streets in this neighborhood that don't have full sidewalks. Children, seniors, dog walkers, and dogs freely walk in the streets. The current traffic pedestrian infrastructure does not support and ensure safe movement of vehicles and pedestrians. And the traffic report that was done was completed in August when school was not in, and also many people are on vacation. So the current traffic report that was completed as part of the proposal. The inconsistency and lack of information in the applicant's documents is concerning. The project justification report talks about market-based rentals and further on affordable, while the drawing submitted to planning states only affordable. The report also states that the development will provide numerous tangible benefits to the community and local area. These benefits would also be available with medium density housing. There's an implication that there will be 2 entrances that I mentioned. These will not be in place during construction. And as I mentioned previously, the traffic report was completed in 2 days during the summer when school was not in session and people were on vacation. It also assumes 74 tenant vehicles or 98, when the reality is that there will be a lot more, as mentioned earlier. The current residents of the surrounding area should have the right to concrete information so they can evaluate their concerns, well-being, and safety. Furthermore, this application should not be approved on the premise that all the issues will be resolved after the approval. The residents of the area bought homes in a low-medium density area with the intention of having a quiet, safe neighborhood, offering privacy where they live. The changing of the zoning and addition of this rental complex will take away from the very reason homeowners purchased here in the first place. There are currently 3 apartment buildings in this area of Port Hope. An application is in process for the development of a high-density seniors complex, as previously mentioned, with 110 units on Henderson Street, which will also be rentals. Intensification should be spread out throughout the town of Port Hope, not just in this area. The term affordable housing also encompasses home ownership, and younger generations want to be given the chance of home ownership. Paying rent does not build equity, Port Hope, both rural and urban, is building, planning subdivisions with low medium density. Unfortunately, the properties in these subdivisions are too expensive for many who would like to enter the housing market. What's missing in this mix are middle-ranked housing or condo units, such as the ones built near Extendicare in Port Hope. These are roughly $200,000 to $250,000 less than homes in the Penryn Village and New Amherst in Coburg. This would be another solution to consider with respect to the use of land at 276-282 Victoria. It provides opportunities for home ownership, requires no high-density rezoning, and would fit in with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for those comments. I believe the mic is still on. If you can state your name and address, please.
Shane Fields. Sorry, can everybody hear me? Shane Fields, 31 Spicer Street. I didn't come prepared with a statement. I wanted to hear what the consultant had to say, take notes, and ask questions if that's okay. Couple observations before I ask my questions. I'd like to commend the mayor actually on highlighting some of the things that I also caught, and that words are being thrown around a little bit here at today's meeting without those that are using it understanding the true meaning of it. And I think we need to be cautious of that. I want to point out that the housing crisis is affordable housing. That is the crisis. It's affordable housing is the housing crisis. I want to make that clear. Mr. Conti said in his presentation, this helps the housing crisis as far as the province is concerned. Quote, I'd like to know if the province has anything to do with the plans that are being presented or with his client or anything to do with that. I'd like to know what the province has to do with that. You mentioned employment opportunities. I'd like you to highlight what those employment opportunities are in the area. Demographic changes. I'd like to hear what you consider the demographic changes, current and projected. You also said that this brings a mix of housing. I'd like to know why you feel that that area, that residential neighborhood, needs a mix of housing. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Shane. Mr. Conti, did you want to speak to any of that at this moment? You don't have to, but you're welcome to.
Just briefly, Mr. Chair. So part of the housing crisis, I agree, is affordable housing. But I think the part of the strategy of the province is if you increase the number of units and you have enough units, that the price of some will drop. I think that's a strategy. So, you know, in the provincial planning statement, it's pretty clear objective that the 1.5 million new units by 2035, I think, be built. And we feel this proposal will assist in meeting that objective. It's a small part of it, but it will assist. In terms of employment opportunities, I think I mentioned that the lands to the west were designated for employment. I didn't really mention anything else about employment opportunities. And I think it will add to the mix of housing just by having additional rental units. So one thing I'd also like to clarify, that proposed density for the site is 60 units, about 60 units per net hectare, which is within the medium density range. So the only reason for the zoning bylaw amendment is really to allow for the apartment structure built form. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. And I'll just sort of note for the public as well, I want to make sure that people get a chance to come up, say their comments. In these meetings, especially when questions are being asked and answered, there tends to be a need to want to turn this into a public debate or a public discussion. That's not the purpose of the meeting. So questions asked, answers given, we move on to the next people who would like to make a comment or ask questions. Is there anyone else who would like to come to the podium?
Just one more remark, understanding what you said. This will be it for the night, I promise. Thank you. Consultant said it himself, to be honest with you, and I want to highlight that. The strategy is build low-income housing so that the houses around you drop in price. I expect the council to support the residents that continue to live here, pay taxes here, and want to build a life and set roots in this community, because that's not a strategy. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Any other member would like? Yes, please. You'll have to press the purple button to start up the mic. And if you could mention your name and address, please. You'll notice when the light comes on, that's the cue. There you go. And you may have to just tuck it down a little bit for yourself.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank council, the mayor, and the other members, residents here, for bringing up questions that we have been wondering about. Having given that, I would like to ask EchoView if we know at this time exactly what the build is for these units. Is it going to be brick? Is it going to be glass? Is it going to be siding, a combination? Or is that sort of far in the future? Hasn't been determined. Okay.
And sorry, just please ask your questions, and then just because he's not.
Places?
Well, no, we'll just get the questions out. He'll come up. The reason I say that is we're live streaming, and so if he answers and
Sorry.
it's not on a mic, people at home don't know what the answers are. So I'll just have you ask your questions. Once you're done, then if Mr. Coney wants to come and answer them, then he'll answer them in its entirety. I also need to get your name and address. Yeah.
My name is Ann Zagerchuk, and I live at 9 Klein Street.
Thank you, Ann.
Todd.
Go ahead.
Forgot about the live streaming. I had a bit of difficulty listening or hearing some of the answers and questions. So I was just wondering what the process is going forward. Is it possible to get a copy of the questions that were asked by council or by the residents? Like, I don't know what the normal process is, but
Certainly, yeah. The whole thing is recorded, so you can actually pull it back up on YouTube and listen to the questions that were asked and get the answers back as you go.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So everything is recorded. So any member of the public who would like to pull that back up and watch it, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you. The other question is, as we move forward on this, I understand it will take time for the planning department to put together notes to be considered, and also probably after this there will be other submissions. And I know I can't be given a date, but I guess I'd sort of like to know, given that it's Christmas time or we're coming up to Christmas, is this going to go before council before Christmas or likely in the new year? That's all I want to know.
Yeah. According to our schedule, it would be. Do you know when the next meeting? Or I guess we have it set, or we haven't set that yet, have we? Okay. It will be in the new year,
Okay.
and I'll let the clerk speak to that if you choose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the meeting calendar for 2025 has not been confirmed yet. It will be going to council for consideration on December 17th. But if the proposed calendar that was approved at Committee of the Whole goes through on December 17th, then we anticipate the next Committee of the Whole meeting to be on January 7th. And then following that, it will be in February, the first Tuesday of February. I'm not entirely sure what that date is, but it will be the first Tuesday of February where the next Committee of the Whole meeting will be. I think it is dependent on staff with respect to when they're planning on bringing forward the staff report. But I would imagine it would be once they sort out all of the details of the planning application.
Okay, thank you.
Theodore, do you want to speak to that as well?
If I may, so if there is any submissions from the applicant, we will update our current project's webpage. And I would strongly recommend to subscribe to that page So when the changes are done, you'll get an email to say that there are changes. Let's say if the site plan is being changed or any report, we keep it updated so you at least know that certain status or plans have changed even before we bring a recommendation report. But I can tell you, January 7, we're not bringing a report on this one. So,
And Theo, could you share how people can subscribe to that page? Maybe you can share for everyone watching at home and here how they subscribe to that page.
I'll have to look at my cell phone, but I can talk to Ann after.
I'm going to pass that over to the clerk because I think
Yeah.
we have the answer over here.
So in order to subscribe to the page, you would have to just go onto the Municipality of Port Hope's webpage, just type in planning applications. It will take you to the relevant page where all of the planning applications are updated. And just at the bottom there's a subscribe button. You press that button, enter in your email, and you're able to access it. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact clerk@porthope.ca. We'd be happy to help you.
So is mine. And your microphone's off again. I don't know if you have another question, but just you'll have to turn it back on.
It's on. Okay. I think that's it. I really need to look at sort of the questions that were asked because, as I said, I didn't hear the answers to all of them or a clear question. But certainly some things were answered today, and I expect that some things will be answered in the future, and we'll proceed from here.
100%.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And thank you for that. That's why we put these pauses in, right? Today is to receive information. We all hear information. We hear questions down the road, then we discuss. So you have lots of time to be able to look at the
Good.
video and discuss. And I'm sure other stuff will pop up for you.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Sam. Yes, Madam Mayor.
And also just to add that we have put into our budget the updating and improvement of the technology and of the system here because you're not the only one that has difficulties hearing. So that is a priority in this upcoming year.
Yes, thank you for adding that. And you may have noticed our mics cut in and out all the time. So yes, you're welcome. Anyone else from the public have a comment or a question at this time? And again, if you don't have one today, you are certainly welcome to email it in. Yes, please come forward. Press that button when the light comes on, name and address.
Okay. It's Allison G. I live at 96 Trefusis, actually right there, southwest corner. That's me. I'm just going to read my email that I sent. I've never done this before. I don't really know processes. I'm just going to read my NIMBY email. I'm sure we all feel the same way. So here I am speaking on behalf of probably a bunch of us. I'll just read everything that I sent in this morning or last night. I'd like to be notified of the decision in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and I've also added my feedback to this proposal of zoning and decision of subject lands to housing rental units below. My understanding by looking at the permitted uses in residential zones table between medium and high residential allows for high to include apartments. Both allow multiple unit dwellings, but it would need to be high density for them to be apartments. This does not sit well with me. I've outlined my concerns below. I think Henderson in Jocelyn intersection, this is something more the Pemberton extension, which I apologize, I thought was part of this. It was sort of talking about a safety issue there and coming out of Henderson onto Jocelyn. So I will skip that. Traffic is busy at certain times of the day at Jocelyn and Victoria, which will become a lot busy. Also, people that will be cutting through Trefusis to avoid that intersection, which is happening now. It's going to, obviously, it will get busier because it cuts out that corner. Everybody's doing it. The low-rise character of the buildings allow tenants to look into my backyard. I know I sound MIMBY. I rented for years. I moved here a couple of years ago into retirement, buying this home based on the privacy of my back garden. The quietness, the solitude, the wildlife in my backyard among these pine trees, the turkey vultures in the trees, the blue jays, the cardinals, the squirrels, the chipmunks, the owls, and the possums in my backyard. All I hear is nature. Okay, I do hear the yard sometimes. I'm more than mortified to hear about the proposal. Right now, it's complete quietness. I have no outdoor lights blaring, no late night doors slamming, no on-street parking, no foot traffic passing in front of my home where there is no sidewalk to the park, bringing more people, more noise, more mess. And that is why paying $5,300 per year on my property tax does not bother me so much. We pick up our litter. We pick up our dog poop. We look out for each other. We shovel each other's driveway. We cut grass. It's a true, well taken care of, quiet community of people who have pride of home ownership. I read a minimal impact on traffic flows by these 74 units. I also cannot agree with this, as well as the fact that the apartment units never have enough parking for the amount of tenants in and out overnight as well. There is no public transportation here. I get this has been said. I just sort of had it in my email as well. I don't understand how this comment meets the criteria. There is no public transport. The downtown has been a disaster. The fire cleanup, the homes at the lake have destroyed the woods and the forest, and now this top end wooded area of town, I feel, is under attack. I looked for many years for a location like I have now. My street is older with beautiful lawns, gardens. We look after our property. We're proud of Port Hope and what it represents. Many of my neighbors have already gone through enough in the years gone by in this town. I was a tenant for many years. Tenants do not have pride of ownership. We don't own the property. That respect is not there for those of us who have spent hundreds and thousands of dollars and pay massive amounts of property tax. We live in this area for solitude. We're on the edge of town. We'd love to keep it looking this way. I will literally walk onto my deck and be looked at by people. I know it's 3 stories, but they're above me. Full access into my backyard, which right now is absolute solace. I have a walkout from my bedroom. This will create a view from the apartments into my bedroom, which means curtain closed at all times. I'm beyond upset. This is one of the reasons I bought this home. The medium density, quiet and peaceful atmosphere, attractive homes and landscaping of the neighborhood I live are important to me. Streets lined with trees, cared for gardens. The residences enhance the community character in this area of town. I beg for the zoning to remain medium. In my view, it will distort the identity of the town. It will reshape the community into a disconnected living environment. I feel it's just a beginning. Coming off Dale Road, currently onto Cranberry, is peaceful. It's the edge of town. The views are spectacular. It's a quiet, it's little traffic. It will be busy. Choate Road and Cranberry crossing area will be busy. It will not work as it is now. The trucks flying in and out of the yard at all hours now can be bothersome, as you don't see them when you're coming over the bridge. But again, we don't mind. It's a small price to pay to live in this wonderful community. This will create mayhem with the vehicles coming in and out of the apartment complexes, as well as the yard, especially when the weather is bad. Coming over the bridge going south right now, you do not see those trucks pulling out. It is not for the better in this area of town. As it is now, it's a blind turn when looking left. You don't see the traffic coming over that bridge. I feel a safety issue all around. In addition, multiple family apartments will lower the property value. This cannot be denied, going from complete privacy and tall trees to tenants looking into your backyard. Going from the sound of nature to the sounds of door slamming, dogs barking, and traffic. Going from beautiful stars and moon at night from my bedroom window to bright lights in a parking lot. Going from knowing your community to strangers, noise, and more mess. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And you did a great job for your first time. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please come forward. Name and address, please, as you press the button.
All right. Hi, my name is Tyler Torrance, and I'm one of your neighbors on Trefusia Street. My backyard would be looking right into this building as well. So obviously, I have similar concerns just about the zoning being changed from townhomes, let's say, to three-story, and how that may impact our quality of life in our backyards. I guess just a concern about just the lack of details around let's say the strategy to integrate these apartments in a sympathetic way within our neighborhood. Like, what are the design features that ensure they're contributing to the value of our neighborhood as well, not devaluing it. So even for all of us, especially those that have backyards facing this property, I would ask that there's a very clear planting screen plan that ensures going ahead, that we have a not only a screen, because none of us really anticipated having an apartment building behind us. So what is that strategy? I know there's a reference I saw to maintaining some of that that trees and things like that, but there's a lot of low value, limited life Manitoba maples and that type of thing. There are a few evergreens that were planted at some point in the past, but they're few and far between. The other piece is it's a bit of a wildlife corridor. So we heard a lot of references to the birds, and I've seen foxes and a lot of rabbits and butterflies. Yes. Thank you. More neighbors here. Coyotes. We've often been serenaded in the springtime by the coyotes, which I love. So is there an opportunity to build a biodiversity corridor in there? Because there's also a ravine just a bit further west and south. So I'm also wondering how that's being configured into the overall strategy. So those are, it's really having a clear plan again on the landscaping strategy, and even things like lighting, sidewalks, like, does it contribute to the walkability of our neighborhood as well? I'm not sure if we have sort of planning strategies in place to ensure the appropriate lighting. So those are I think those were the primary things. The butterflies, yes, Maureen. We want to protect the butterflies, the birds. And I think that's about it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the ideas and the suggestions, and certainly things for thinking. And staff are certainly taking down notes to the ideas, and I'm sure Mr. Conti is as well. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Tyler. Yep. And it appears the mic is still on, so you just have to do your name and address.
Justin Novia, 15 Klein Street. Thank you for having me this evening. I just wanted to point out something in the report. So in section 2.4.4.4 for community character, discusses kind of some of the things to be considered for the surrounding neighborhoods. So it does state, I guess, the Port Hope plan. Council shall ensure that promotes development within an established neighborhood is designed to function as integral and complementary part of the area's existing development pattern, by having regard for A, massing, specifically B, building height, also things like lot size, etc. In the report, it discusses while this building provides a different form of residential unit than the prominent type within the neighborhood, mostly single detached dwellings. States will be consistent with the surrounding area, which is comprised mostly of two-story dwellings. Probably 90% of the homes in the area are bungalows, single story. So just to point that out.
Great. Thank you very much for drawing attention to that. Anyone else from the public who'd like to come forward and make a comment or ask a question? Yeah, Anne, did you want to come back up? And you'll have to put it back. It has been turned off again.
Do I give my name again, Todd?
We're good. We know you.
I just want to emphasize at this point that
you may have to pull
in
the
the
mic down a bit,
neighborhood,
though.
with the residents. Okay. Oh, that's much better. Traffic is a real concern. I mean, everybody's talking about it, and particularly at this point, Jocelyn and Victoria. There's 2 stop signs there, right? North and south. And I'd just like to give you an example of what happened to me the other day and happens quite frequently. As I say, that's only 2 stop signs. So I approached the stop sign. Person coming northbound was there, had the right of way after the traffic had cleared east and west, and just sat there. And then looked at me and tried to wave me on. And I went, no, 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 it's your turn, because I don't want to take direction from somebody else when I'm in charge of my vehicle. So this is not uncommon. And so after that, when we finally cleared through that, what happened was they came and the car behind was so impatient that even though they should have stopped and checked again, they just went through. It happens frequently, and it's a real concern. There are people crossing, seniors as well as students and people walking dogs, and there's nobody there other than during school hours. There's a crossing guard. So when I think about it, I think, and I know some of the neighbors have voiced the opinion that there should be stoplights there, not a 4-way stop sign, because if you think of what it's like with 2, can you imagine what it's like with 4? It would be a disaster in my mind. And so I'm just putting it out there that I would look at traffic lights at Jocelyn and Victoria as a big plus in this area, because if you have further traffic coming down from Victoria and Cranberry Road, and the other thing is Cranberry Road, not everybody's going 50 clicks, trust me. They go over that bridge and it zooms by, and maybe that's why the police like to sit in the yard and get their tickets. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that comment, and I know staff has taken note of it. Are there any other comments before we conclude tonight's meeting? I'll note a couple of things. I've said it a couple of times, but it's worth repeating. If you've got, or if you think later on about comments or questions that you have for staff, you can email them to planning@porthope.ca. They'll be happy to take those comments and answer questions. The other thing is, if you think later on and there's stuff that you want directed to council, if you email it to clerk@porthope.ca, the clerk will make sure all of us get it. Sometimes people think they have to email us independently or anything, but if you send it to clerk@porthope.ca, then the clerk will make sure that all of council gets a chance to see your comments as well. Okay, so sometimes that's helpful. I'd like to thank everyone for participating tonight. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to come down and share that. I'd also like to thank Mr. Condi for coming in for his presentation, and staff for all the hard work for tonight. So this concludes the public meeting for tonight. It's 6:23 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned.